Happy Saturday and welcome to Virtual Vegfest Live. We were live 4 times this week. It's a lot. But happy to be here, and also thank you to Shroomeats for sponsoring our live talks this month. And as you know, I hope you know, we've got prize packs that you can win, 6 of them. 6 prizes that you can win on a monthly basis. What do you have to do? Go to virtualvegfest.com, check out our vendors and support them too, but go to the little contest tab and enter to win, like by just doing cool things like subscribing to our Virtual Vegfest YouTube channel, going to Instagram and liking Greenville Fun Fest, which is our newest event that's happening on August 15th this year in Greenville, South Carolina. But we've got prizes from Hodo Foods, Follow Your Heart, Orgain, Crofters Organics, Shroomeats, and Cinnaholic. Who wouldn't want to win a prize from like these really cool companies? And thank you to them for sponsoring us, because we really appreciate their support every month. I mean, that's like pretty awesome, and you're the benefit of that. So go enter. We love to give things away. We're a nonprofit that likes to help people. So hey, do that. I don't want to tell you what to do though. So Cranky Vegan here today. Conversation. It's going to be fun because I've watched some of his YouTube videos, and if you haven't checked that out, you can subscribe to his YouTube, the Cranky Vegan, and like his Facebook page and Instagram and Twitter, all those things. And I just saw that he's on Clubhouse too, which I need to get on Clubhouse as well. If you don't know Clubhouse, you have to be an Apple person to be on it, but you can ask somebody and they can maybe give you an invite, because we all get them. So I don't even know the questions, comments, put them in the little box. Kind of like spacing out now. Oh, there's 2 local things I want to talk about today before we go with Jake. Plant Cakes Bake Shop, Wake Forest, North Carolina. I'm kind of high on their food right now. They have these parfaits today that are incredible. So it's all about like supporting local in your community or in ours. And then Stairway to Vegan, new food truck in the Triangle, North Carolina. Unbelievable food. Very fortunate that North Carolina has like incredibleness like that. So let's get started. Hey, how are you?
Hello. Thanks so much
Hello.
for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Hodo makes those tofu burgers, yeah?
Yes. Yeah, and
Dude, those are my
actually,
favorite.
I'm pretty sure they're located in Berkeley.
Oh, are they?
Yes, I'm pretty
Okay.
sure they're definitely a California company. I'm pretty sure a Berkeley, California
I was
company.
wondering why I can only find them in California. I can never find them where I live up in Washington. So I'm like, I need it. Like whenever I come to California, I just load up on Hodo tofu burgers and
They're
just
they
eat
they have
them.
they have like deliciousness. They have like the little tofu nuggets as well, like the curry one and like I think a barbecue one, and
Yeah.
it's like simple food because I mean, I like to take the barbecue one and like throw it into a salad. And because it's cooked already, you just have to heat it or not heat it. You just eat it like that. And Whole Foods
Yeah.
out here has Hodo products, so I'm surprised. How could they not be? How could they not be in Washington State when they're from California?
I don't know. They
I'll
need
ask
better
them.
distribution.
Yeah, I'll send an email. I'll ask them. Hey, you
Maybe they
can.
are. I just never seen them. But maybe I'll just win the prize pack and be good to go.
Yes, that would be the best way to do it. And you can keep trying every month, because if you win, I pick who wins which pack. So
Uh-oh.
if you do win, it's random. The winner is random, but who gets
Oh,
which
okay.
pack, I pick. So because for like the Cinnaholic one, you have to live by a Cinnaholic. Otherwise,
That is
they
true.
don't want to give that one away to just someone who's like 200 miles from a Cinnaholic and go, maybe you'll use it. So,
Yeah.
but other than all the other ones, like Follow Your Heart has shipped to Europe. We didn't ship
I feel like
product,
there's Cinnaholics everywhere this day at this point.
except my last round of winners. Nobody was close to a
Uh,
Cinnaholic. 5 people, the 6th person didn't respond. 5 people, no one was close to a Cinnaholic.
that's funny.
I know. I was like, one out of 6 has to, right? No, it's not how it works. And I'm not gonna just toss away a winner because you're not close to one. I'm gonna like
Totally.
just yeah, I'll just not give away the Cinnaholic one, or I'll give them something else. Like Orgain will give me multiple prizes if I need another one. So would Follow Your Heart. So I just kind of be like, hey, can you just send another prize, please? And they'll be like, okay, thank you.
I mean, you never know. Someone might be near a Cinnaholic at some point on some future holiday vacation.
I know, but they don't want to give it away to somebody. So
Just anyone.
it's one of the rules that I have from Cinnaholic is that someone needs to be near one to win the prize. So if you live by a Cinnaholic, you really want to enter. It's a $50 gift certificate. It's enough for a dozen. That's
That's
like
pretty generous. That's great.
it's a super sugar high.
Yeah, I'm all about it.
So that is so. How about we throw this at you and you tell us who you are?
My name's Jake. I am an activist. I've been doing activism and I've been vegan for like 26 years or something. And I have worked on a variety of different, done all sorts of different types of activism, all different tactics against different targets. But my main interest is in pressure campaigning, the idea of focusing on a particular target and going after it until you get what you want from it. And so to that end, like I've worked on local, regional, national, and international pressure campaigns on a variety of different issues, from fur to vivisection and everything in between. Yeah, and so I currently do a YouTube channel called Cranky Vegan, which is, as you can guess, me just being cranky about things online. But I predominantly talk about the strategies and tactics of the grassroots animal rights movement and how I think we could be doing things a little bit better. Yeah. What else could I tell you about? I worked on a campaign called Stop Huntington Animal Cruelty, or SHAC, which was like a pretty hard-hitting grassroots campaign to shut down one of the world's largest animal testing facilities. And that got us a bit of notoriety. And there's a great documentary called The Animal People that was executive produced by Joaquin Phoenix that you can find online. That's all about the campaign. And I unbiasedly, or maybe biasedly, think it's a great documentary. Yeah, so those are all different places you can kind of check out what I'm about. But mostly I'm just a cranky asshole that pontificates his thoughts and feelings on the internet, which is nothing new these days, unfortunately. So
Yeah, but you were before COVID.
I was cranky before COVID and online before COVID
Yes.
and pontificating before COVID. That is true.
Right. You know, some of us like me like said, "Oh, hey, COVID, let me do something," because
Yeah,
poof, every all in person events just went away, and what
out the
else can
door.
we do? So, I love to MC, but I never get to do it because I'm always maybe producing the festivals. I'm making sure the event runs. So I had to bring somebody else to do this part, and this really totally fed
Right.
into my desire to like talk with people, even though I'm introverted. Like it's like, oh, we do this, and I like just don't go talk to anybody for like a few hours. So it's
Yeah.
like it's all good, just refill the pot. But I like
I
I want to delve into like everything. I didn't know 26 years vegan.
yeah.
It's a long time. That's the soy powder vegan.
It was weird. Yeah. I look back on the things I used to eat and yeah, I'm appalled at myself.
What choice did you have besides like fruits and vegetables and tofuti?
Yeah, there was tofuti. I have a huge sweet tooth, so I predominantly eat a lot of garbage, and so it was a lot of tofuti. There's a lot of rice dream, Neapolitan rice dream, which personally I think just tastes like sweet sand, and I really don't like. Like silken tofu. Like if you ever tried cooking with like fried tofu and it's silken, like smooth or whatever, that's disgusting. Um, TVP, texture vegetable protein. That's it. I mean, I mean, and vegetables and legumes and things like that, obviously. But like in terms of like processed garbage, which is my jam, yeah, it was basically that.
I yeah, I'm 10 years in, but I was vegetarian for like overall together. It's over 30 years for me. So, but I remember like a friend who was vegan when I was met him when I was 18, 19 years old. And he's an animal rights activist, green mohawk, the whole thing, like going to Manhattan and doing the animal rights like
Yeah,
protests and parades and stuff. And he would drink soy milk, and I'd be like, "Yo, that's disgusting." And that wasn't powdered soy milk; that was like soy milk. And next thing I know, I'm drinking soy milk. So it's like really, all of us have said never say never. No,
yeah,
seriously, never say never. It's like, oh, I like
yeah.
soy milk. unsweetened. It's
Yeah.
not the chocolate and vanilla like crap soy milk, but like soy milk's good. Like you just change. And 26 years. I mean, I know a lot of people that are in that long haul, like long term. I mean, the changes, the changes. How how do you see like what the world is like now comparatively?
I mean, and that's such a broad question. Like compare it in terms of what? Veganism, animal rights, myself.
We can stick with food and go elsewhere.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, things have certainly changed quite a bit. I mean, there's way more interesting things to eat. There's way more selection and just I used to, and I still do, but I used to travel a lot. Back then, I used to travel with my friends, like hardcore punk rock bands. So we'd spend 2 months driving around the country in a van, and I was this would first time I did that I think it was 1996. So it was like it wasn't a lot of vegan food. Where I think all of us were vegan, and so it was like, what are we going to eat? And so I would always pick something before we would go out on the road. I'd be like, all right, I want a vegan milkshake, which you couldn't really find in 1996. And so I would literally drive around the country and every city in the United States, I'd be like, well, where can I find a vegan milkshake? And there's only a couple places that you could really find one that wasn't like soy milk with bananas in it, which is disgusting. Um, so yeah, there's so much has changed. Things are so different. And for the most part, it's good. I mean, I personally don't, I think like all the vegan options are great. I don't think that necessarily means that like we're on the path to victory, but I mean, in terms of eating and being like eating good food, I'm all about it for sure.
Yeah, that's the food thing is important. A vegan milkshake is hard to find now, let alone
Yeah,
when I mean, I would think that Syracuse, New York would have been like maybe one of the only places that you could find a
that was
vegan
one of the only
milkshake back
places I
then.
could find it. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
At like
Like Syracuse, I think was it.
yeah,
And then there
strong
were, I don't know when
hearts.
it started, but in Arizona, I think it was Tucson. Someone can drop it in the chat, but it's the Soynami. They made like a vegan like Dairy Queen Blizzard.
Oh
I think they
wow.
had that in the 90s. That was pretty great.
Oh, that is awesome. So skipping over and like getting past food,
Uh,
there's been like I don't know, has it really changed? Has activism really changed outside of the fact that we
e,
have more social media?
I think I mean, my perspective is from a grassroots animal rights perspective. So I recognize that is going to be, that's going to look different for different people depending on what kind of activism you do. But yeah, I think activism is like most things is cyclical. Um, and so I think like we can see in the grassroots animal rights movement, we can see it kind of coming around. And so I think, when we were doing Shack, there was a lot of, intense campaigning and pressure campaigns and civil disobedience and direct action and things like that. And that transitioned into, people just doing a lot of outreach. And predominantly that would be it. And so, which there isn't anything like inherently wrong with doing outreach, but I think it's how we do the outreach and what it's a part of is where I have an issue. But and I think that idea of like outreach as a form, as a way of like achieving our goals has been with us for 10 years at this point, or 11 or even 15 years in the grassroots animal rights movement of a lot of talking and not a lot of strategizing or action. And so I think, in the last couple of years, we've seen that start to change. And I think it is a bit cyclical. Like I think we're coming back to the point where we are more interested as a movement in doing smart strategies and smart campaigns to affect change and incorporate the outreach into it, as opposed to using outreach as a sole standalone strategy. That's a big shift from vegan milkshakes in conversation, but I'm going to
Yes.
go with it.
It sure is because, you can make a vegan milkshake at home now, but can we really facilitate change? I do believe in the starfish, right? I do believe that each and every single one of us has the ability to create change. And you can't think that just because you're one person that you won't make a difference. We all can make a difference. And when you put all those people together, we make a really big difference in whatever it is that you do. For me, I produce vegan festivals. We reach tens of thousands of people every year by bringing them to that gateway drug of vegan food, because that's the highlight
Hmm.
of the festival. And then, of course, the education and all the vendors and just that energy that happens and that synergy that happens at that vegan event. That people kind of do this is vegan? Yes. It
Yeah.
really is like down to like the sugar. This is vegan. We haven't gotten to the point where I restrict what type of bread they use, because I
Hmm.
don't want to blow the vendors' minds that the bread might not be vegan that they're using, because that's like a level like 1,000 vegan that's going to come into an event and ask like the ingredients of the bread and know
Uh-huh.
that that's not that there's whatever those things are in that bread that make it not vegan. And that thing that's in
Like
that bread, that
milk.
it's not the milk, it's not a preservative, but
There's monodiglycerides, there's L-cysteine, there's all sorts of like weird
there's
things in bread.
there's some weird things in there, and what it actually is as really disgusting. But how do I how do I explain that to the vendors? Because most people aren't going there. I just happen to know about it, and I had an attendee at the National Veg Fest last October who is allergic to those things. So we went over to a vendor and asked to see the bread, and she pointed out that the bread wasn't vegan to the vendor, and it kind of blew the vendor's mind. And I was like, look, I'm not upset with you. You wouldn't know this. This is not like every day. This person happens to be like, if you give this to her, she would probably die because she's that
Uh,
allergic to it. But typically, they're not going there. But now that we opened up the dialogue, everyone should look at their bread. And if you buy bread that has like 5 ingredients, and you don't have to worry about it.
yeah.
Buy like the
Yeah, I think
typical
it's I
bread,
think
and
that's
yeah, it's probably
I
not
think that's
vegan.
why I don't organize things like that. I think yeah, I think for if you're advertising it as like a vegan event or a plant-based event, then I think it's important to make sure that it's vegan and plant-based. But I mean, if it's a vegetarian thing, then I don't know. That's where I feel like for me, like I'm just not interested in dealing with those headaches, and I'd rather just organize campaigns against corporations and mess with them instead.
Sounds so much easier.
I know, right?
To me, no, it doesn't sound easier at all. The events actually sound easier.
Yeah.
So, but how do you how so tell us how you do it? How-
Oh, I mean, it's a complicated process. I think that's what makes it difficult and uninteresting to people is that it does take a lot of work. It takes a lot of sacrifice. But I think that, it's worth it. And I think, I think it starts out with you figuring out that you want to be active for whatever cause you want to fight for or against. In the animal rights movement, you figure out what you're good at, what your skills are, and how they can apply to the animal rights movement. And I think when we think of protests, we often think of people with bullhorns or doing disruptions or causing problems. But in order for a protest to happen, you really need a lot of different people, including a lot of people behind the scenes, doing the organizing, doing the research, doing the writing, doing the finances, doing the fundraising, doing the design. And you need all those pieces in order to put together a campaign that's going to be successful. So I think if you can figure out what you're good at, and then you find friends or people in your area or online that complement your skill sets, and then you can start putting together like interesting groups of people, right? You have a designer, you have someone maybe that's good at organizing or participating in a protest, you have someone that's good at fundraising, and you got three crucial components to start something. And then I think it's about picking a target that seems reasonable and you have the ability to move or win. And also, I think a target that would, capture the imagination of the people in your local community, vegan or otherwise. I think an example might be, trying to stop foie gras in your city, or stopping the circus from coming to your city, or banning fur in your city, or shutting down, a fur salon or something like that. There's a lot of people out there that are opposed to circuses that aren't vegan. There's a lot of people out there that are opposed to foie gras that aren't vegan. And I think if you can pick a smart target, particularly as like your first or second campaign, that really captures the imagination of people and you get a lot of people on board, I think the better we are. And then we do our research, we figure out who's involved with this target, the restaurant, for instance, and then anyone and everyone involved with that restaurant, people that supply them the food, people that print them their menus, people that provide them with internet. You figure out who all those companies are, and then you can protest against them as well. Maybe they have sponsors. Maybe the restaurant sponsors events in the community, and then you can go and protest against those things. And when I say protest, it doesn't necessarily mean like you're on a bullhorn yelling or you're holding signs or screaming. Like yes to those things, but there's also like writing letters, making phone calls, having conversations. Sometimes it's just a matter of going to someone and being like, "Hey, you are a sponsor of, or you advertise with this restaurant, or this restaurant advertises with you, and these are the things that the restaurant supports, and we don't think that's like very ethical. Would you reconsider?" Sometimes it's, you know, having those conversations, and sometimes it's escalating it to protest. But you figure out what works, and you start picking away at the weak points of those corporations, of those targets, and then eventually, I think they do what you want them to do. I think most people and most companies, the two things they don't like to have disturbed is their public persona and the money that they make. And I think if you can disrupt those two pieces, you'll find any corporation of any size will start paying attention to you. And that's when we can start to see change. And we can go into like a much deeper dive, but that I think that's like the basics of like how you can start thinking about doing it a little differently. But I think people often think of campaigns and protesting separate from doing vegan outreach or encouraging people to be eat plant-based. And I would argue that it's the opposite. I think outreach is a really important piece of these campaigns. For instance, a foie gras campaign, you get a lot of people involved that aren't vegan. There's a great opportunity to be like, you're opposed to foie gras, but those birds on those foie gras farms are the same as the chickens that you eat, or the egg for, produce the eggs, lay the eggs that you eat in the same awful conditions. And maybe, talk about making those connections. And so you get to do both. You get to pressure corporations or restaurants or your target, and you also get to do outreach, not only to the people that are involved in the campaign, but your local community. And then I think that's when you start putting all those individual puzzle pieces together is when you can start to make bigger change.
Yeah, I like in some of your videos, you focus on the fact that a lot of people who aren't vegan, well, we can't do this with only vegans. That's where you go. We can't do this with only vegans. We're not a large enough part of the population, number one. And two, the people who would be willing to do this, it's an even smaller part of the population. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of effort, and you said there are a lot of flexitarians. There's a lot of people that just decided to eat plant based. When they go to a
Yeah.
restaurant, there's just there's and they hate the way their food's being produced. It's like that really touched me because there's those people and they get turned off by vegans that are out there with the bullhorn or like in their face when they're eating a meal. I've heard the comments that someone will say like, I was going to order a salad, but now I'm going to order a steak because you're in this restaurant telling me not to eat a steak. So
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to, but now I am. And that's like, it's like the last thing you want to have happen. That's not my type of activism. And there's nothing wrong with that. That there are people out there, there's people I absolutely adore who do that type of activism. It's just not what I feel comfortable with. But I do believe in planting seeds and building relationships and having conversations and not judging you for what's on your plate, but to help you to put something different on that plate, even
Mm-hmm.
if it's one meal a week, and see how you feel. Like yes, they sell Impossible and Beyond Burgers with dairy cheese on them and mayo. That's
Yeah.
okay to me because that person's ordering that burger, that Impossible or Beyond Burger, because of the dairy cheese and the mayo on it. Because it's familiar. But the
Yeah.
main thing there, that burger, is the animals that are saved and the planet that's being saved and the health is it's still better for you than eating an animal product with the mayo and the cheese on it, the dairy cheese on it. And we need to say we need to be like, yay, that's great in the background. I feel
Yeah,
like instead of
I,
like, you should do better.
for me, like, I understand what you're saying for sure. For me, I don't want to encourage anyone to eat anything that isn't vegan. And that's just my personal like thing. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. For me, I'm less interested in what people are eating. Um, because I don't think that we have a big enough population and we're able to affect that big of enough population eating habits in order to make a significant dent on its own. So for me, like I would be less inclined to encourage people to eat something vegetarian with cheese and mayo on it, as opposed to I would be more like I'd much rather have you being an activist than worrying about what that person is eating. Like I'm not convinced with subsidies and the way the government works and bailouts that if we get, we're consistently at like 2 to 3% of the U.S. population is vegan in the United States. That hasn't shifted that much. I mean, it's grown in the last couple decades from like 1.5% to 2%. It's just there's not enough growth on its own to really make a dent in the things we want to put a dent in. And we can see with COVID, when our food systems really start to collapse, and it collapsed in big ways during COVID, way more than we have ever been able to create in the vegan community. The government stepped in with what, like $64 billion of resources to bail them out. It's astronomical how much money will sink into the dairy industry, the cattle industry, the pig, chicken industries to save them. And so, at what point, at what percentage do we really need to get people to eat vegan or eat a plant-based diet where it really starts to make a change? I just don't think we're capable of getting there. So for me, like I'm all about getting people. I want everyone to be vegan. I mean, I encourage people to be vegan. But ultimately, I think when it comes to how we actually make change, unless we shift the corporations, unless we shift the systems and shift the industries and the sectors and the people that are making those decisions on how those things operate, if we don't shift those things, society doesn't change. We often talk about supply versus demand, and we are convinced in the animal rights movement, the vegan movement, that the demand side is what we need to shift. I just don't think that's true. I think we are much more manipulated by corporations and governments through advertising, through marketing, through capitalism, uh, in, it, into thinking that we want to eat these things or we need to eat these things. And I think we would be much better off changing those systems than changing individuals one at a time. Statistically, from the few studies that I've seen, people go vegan for approximately a year and then they stop. And like, how much time do we spend in encouraging someone to eat more vegan food or become vegan or eat plant based? And how much do we invest in that in order to make one person be that way for a year statistically and then stop? But if we pick apart these systems, we can start, you know, getting people away from the idea that they need to eat animals in order to survive. That's obviously a big, heavy lift too, but I think there's a lot less individuals you have to convince and change than you would if you needed to change 7 billion people on the planet. Um, but I think, yeah, and like I said earlier, like changing those systems and changing those corporations, you're also changing people um, into thinking more differently about, into thinking differently about how they eat their food and what they eat as food. Um, and so to that end, like me, I'm much more interested in making activists than I am making vegans. I worry less about what people are eating because I think eventually it connects for people down the road. If I can get someone to fight for animals for a year as opposed to eating plant-based for a year, I would almost always pick the activist over the plant-based person any day. But that's
Because
just me.
they'll
I could
stick
be totally weird.
but they stick with it. That's the difference. The food people tend to drop off. The activists tend to stick around and stay focused and continue eating that way because they understand the impacts on the animals and the environment and their health, but they've trumped their health to the environment and to the animals, and that
Yeah.
trumps they're eating healthy because they're eating healthy because they're vegan, supposedly, because you don't have to be eating healthy and be vegan, but
Yeah,
it is still typically better for you health wise, as long as you're not
for
fully
sure.
junk food, fully unprocessed junk food. That's it. You should be better off. But it does trump. I've heard it multiples of times from other people that they know someone who went vegan for health and they didn't stick with it. But if someone goes vegan for they watch Dominion, they're like, I'm done. They get through,
Yeah,
but
and
they
I
get through Dominion. That's a whole thing in itself.
yeah.
But they get
But
it.
I think that's the difference between like, when we advocate for these things, understanding that veganism isn't a diet, right? Eating plant-based is a diet, and that's great. Like if everyone was plant-based, that's amazing. More people that are plant-based, that's amazing. But it's a diet, and diets are meant to be broken, right?
Yeah.
That's just kind of what happens. And so I think when you get people involved in veganism, where veganism, a part of veganism is a plant-based diet, but it's also a philosophy of ending animal exploitation, then I think people are a little more hooked. That's not to say that like people become activists for animals and then a couple of years later they stop, because that happens all the time too. But for me, that like, if someone eats plant-based, in theory, they're saving 125 animals a year or whatever the number is now. But I mean, that's numbers on paper. That's not really the number of animals being killed continues to rise drastically every year, unless there's like some sort of economic depression. But it has nothing to do with people switching their diets for the large majority of it. But if you can get someone to be an activist for a year or 2 years, and maybe they get a bill passed, maybe they ban fur in their state or their town, maybe they shut down major players in like the animal agriculture industry, and they do that in a couple of years, and then they decide they don't want to be an animal activist anymore. For me, like you get a lot more out of a bill that's going to be stuck around for a while. You get a lot more from like having fewer fur stores. You get a lot more for having a bigger dent put in the animal agriculture industry than you would someone eating plant-based for a year. I could be wrong. That's my opinions.
No, you have me thinking about other ways that I can go about doing what I do because you have a very valid point. You
Yeah,
know,
and don't get me wrong. I hadn't been to a veg fest until like 2019. They just did not interest me. I don't know why. I went to one and I'm like, this is the waiting in line festival. I seriously waited in line for 2 hours to get some food. I'm like, this is stupid. I literally left the line after 20 minutes. I drove down the street to the actual restaurant, bought the food, ate it, and sat down, ate the food, came back, and my friends were still waiting in the line to buy the stuff I just had. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I just like, why am I doing this? Mostly because I'm a cranky asshole, not because like it's a bad thing that people wait in line for vegan food. But so I was like, these aren't my jam. Like, they're just not into it. And then I started going to these veg. People started asking me to speak at Vegfest, and I was like, oh, these are actually pretty great, And I think that it's, there are veg fests that make an effort to make sure to have all the different pieces illustrated, not just plant-based food, but like having health people and athletes and environmentalists and animal rights activists all coming together,
yeah.
and then we get to learn from each other. Maybe someone's like, Jake, you're being an asshole. Like, stop being so cranky. Here's like the benefits of all this. I'm like, oh, I get it. And then someone listens to me talking to like, oh yeah. And then somewhere we meet in the middle, and like we can start, we can continue to make important change for animals and the planet. So I think there is benefits and important pieces of VegFest for sure. I certainly don't want to discount them or give the impression that I'm opposed to them, but
No, no,
it took me a while to get there.
it's a, yeah, I'm a big fan. But one of the things that we do that it's important to me is to have a dedicated education day for all our events. And sadly, COVID has taken that away. Until I feel comfortable putting people sitting down next to one another, breathing each other's air, I'm going to hold off. But we typically have a dedicated day where I bring a variety of people from all the things that you said to come and speak. And I
Yeah.
love it because some of the speakers have said to me, like, while they're talking, they've actually seen the figurative light bulbs go off on top of people's heads, which is exactly what you want to have happen because that's why you bring the education, because a lot of people come to these events who need that, or they bring
Hmm.
the person who needs that because they
Yeah.
get it, but they bring the person who's kind of like, okay, and then they sit and they're like, oh, and they enjoy it.
Yeah.
So that I think that's important too. But let's
Yeah.
kind of segue into the cranky vegan. So
All right.
how'd you come up with it? I mean, you're calling yourself it. Did you call yourself that before you started it? Or
No, it was honestly, it was like a branding thing for me. I started out this like YouTube channel as um, just wanting to like, it honestly was like I would go to these larger animal rights conferences with like a lot of national organizations and things like that. And I kept hearing the same thing over and over from these leaders of these national movements. We're at a tipping point. We're at a tipping point. We're almost there, and we're winning, we're winning. And I kept thinking to myself, are we really? Are we really winning? That doesn't seem right to me. And it's like it's just not the reality that's being painted. And of course, a lot of that's being painted as we are winning. We are at a tipping point because they want donations, which I get. Like I work for an environmental nonprofit, we have a budget. And so, yeah, I get like need to like be positive to get donations. So I was like, I can't sit around and not say anything about this. So I started doing a YouTube channel called Are We Winning? And no one watched it. No one gave a crap about what I was saying. And after like a year of doing it or 8 months, I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'm gonna stop. And then I took a break, and then and I started watching all these other people's YouTube channels, and the one thing that they all had in common was they had vegan in the title. So I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna change my name to something with vegan, and I definitely am cranky. So Cranky Vegan it was. Um, but I mean, part of the reason I started doing the Cranky Vegan was because I've done Facebook, and I've done like, mildly, successful Facebook pages where, you get a couple 100,000 followers, and, you push your message out, and Instagram following, you get 100,000 people on Instagram, blah, blah, blah. And all that's great. But at the same time, I'm like, I've never done YouTube before, and I'm kind of interested in seeing how it works and just learning something new. Originally, I was going to do a podcast and call it My Friends Do the Coolest Shit, where I would just talk to my friends that I was inspired by that has cool stories. And then I was like, I don't like podcasts. I don't listen to podcasts. I don't know how to do podcasts, but I really enjoy editing video. I love it as a hobby. And so I'm like, I'm gonna start a YouTube channel. That piece of the story should have come before the part where I told you about the Cranky Vegan, but whatever, you can figure it out. But anyway, so I started the YouTube channel, Are We Winning? Rebranded it to the Cranky Vegan. And then COVID hit, and then I was like, I do a lot of public speaking, and it's what I really enjoy, traveling and meeting new people and being in small, tight knit communities that are interested in thinking about new ways to make change, and then working with them in any way that they see fit to implement change, to talk to them, maybe do trainings, that type of thing. And obviously, when that happened, or when COVID happened, I couldn't keep doing that, and so I really started pushing this my efforts into this YouTube channel, or maybe I can try to do pieces of what I talk about online on YouTube and see if it works. But I'm really excited once things become safer and healthier to get back into the speaking and the training. But we'll see what happens to the Cranky Vegan.
yeah, because I love the fact that I love your editing, but there's some things that people need to understand about what you do, because I get it, because I work with people who edit. The reason why I'm live is because I don't want to do what you do, because I don't want to take
Yeah.
the time to do what you do. So we're live, and also if things go haywire, we have the excuse of we're live. That's the charm of
Yeah.
being live. Cats come
Yeah.
through, like things fall up, people drop off, come back. I mean, it's just, and that you just flow with it. But you record, like your typical show is somewhere 10, 14 minutes, somewhere in that 20-minute range, right? How long does
Yeah.
it take you to record? I mean,
Yeah.
we see 10 to 20 minutes of it, but how long do you record for to get it there?
Yeah, it's through my show. One of my series on my YouTube channel that I do most predominantly is 3 Minute Thursdays. It's never been 3 minutes long. And now it's about 10 to 12 minutes. It depends on what I'm talking about. But generally, yeah, it'll take me to make a video from start to finish, maybe 8 to 10 hours. And I work a full-time job. And so, I'll work on a Wednesday when I make the video, I'll work till 5 o'clock and then eat dinner. And then I'll start a video and I'll work till 2 or 3 in the morning, and then start my next day job again at 9 in the morning. So it's a lot of work. I mean, I'm doing 8 to 10 hours on a video, And, that includes thinking about what I want to talk about, writing anything down if I need to write it, filming it. And, I might film depending how cranky and irritated I am, and I just start pontificating. I can record between 20 and 50 minutes of me just rambling about stuff. And then you have to edit it down into a bite-sized morsel that people will actually watch. So that takes time. And then you got to do post-production. You got to make thumbnails. You got to design stuff. You got to upload it. You got to write the descriptions. And all these things are like small things, but they really adds up. By the time I put it up on all my social media channels by the next morning, yeah, I mean, and answer the hundreds of comments and direct messages and emails and requests, and they're not like, some of them are like, this is great, but some are like, can you tell me if I were to do this in my community, what would be the 5 steps I would do to be? I'm like, it's not like I'm like, thanks for the message. It's like, here's a paragraph or 2 paragraphs. I mean, I'm putting in like 20, 25 hours a week on top of my 40-hour work week. That's a lot. And so I'm someone that really like believes in the idea of like depth over width. Um, and the idea of like building important relationships and building community as opposed to like, let me see if I can get 150,000 followers or subscribers. I'd rather have the 6,800 subscribers or whatever I have now and have good conversations and challenge one another and like be in debate with one another and disagree with one another than I would be to putting out a video to 150,000 yes men, that are just like, yep, agreed. Yep, agreed. Like, that's my thing. Is like I'm not always right. Who the hell am I? Like how like I'm just one person. These are my ideas. I could be right. I could be wrong. But like unless we challenge one another and challenge what our movement and our communities are doing, then we're never going to get better. You have 150,000 people saying, "Yeah, I agree with you." Cool. Then it's 150,000 people doing the same thing over and over and over again, and it's not really working.
Right.
So it leads me to say, are we winning? Aren't we? Let's have a conversation.
Yeah, no, it's I really commend you for all the effort that goes into the people see like, oh, it's 10 minutes. No.
Yeah.
It's not 10 minutes. And it's not to say that you're sitting there saying, oh, it's like 8 hours of my life. It's yeah, it's 8 hours, but it's 8 hours you've chosen to put into putting something out there that some really interesting topics for people to hear, like James Aspie. And that's kind of how you came
Hmm.
on my radar, actually. You came on my
Yeah.
radar from someone in Switzerland.
Oh yeah.
Yes. That's how you went. Someone in Switzerland told me about the Cranky Vegan. You should check him out because we were talking about Aspie, I'm pretty sure. And
Yeah.
she was like, you should go check it out. And I was like, oh. And that's when I was like, oh, hey, you want to come on? Because, why not throw the dart? You never know. And you were like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I'm down to, I honestly try to like people like get upset if I don't write them back. And I get it. Like you take the time to write someone, you hope that they write them back. And on top of that, I'm terrible at replying. I'm just slow and I got so much to do. I can only do so many, but like I feel bad when I can't write everyone back. But I do make an effort. Sometimes I'll write back people 2 months later and be like, yeah, here's the answer. I'm sorry it took so long. But yeah, I'm genuine when I say like I want to have conversations. Like people are like, oh, you come do this thing or have a comment. Like if I can do it, I'm going to do it because it's important that we discuss this thing. And I'll do public speaking events to like 20 people, 15 people, and they'll be like, I'm so sorry that there only 15 people showed. I was like, I don't care. If all 15 people are like engaged and interested, and we can collectively come up with new ideas and new ways to try to make social change, then like you don't need 100 people here, or 500 people, or 1,000 people here that are just listening and not gonna do anything. I'd much rather talk with those 15 people. So I think it's important. Like I think in a social media world where we all want to be the next big thing on social media and we want this many followers, blah, blah, blah. Like, why do we want those things? Because it makes us feel good, or we've been fed by the system to say that like, oh, if you have value and you have worth if you've reached this number of subscribers or this many followers. It's like, no, you reach value and worth because you have valuable and worthwhile conversations with each other and make valuable and worthwhile change in the world. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. If I could have 150,000 subscribers, I would have it. But
Right, so the truth comes out. No, yes, because with that you have reach, and with reach you can facilitate change, and with change
yeah.
we can do so much more, and you never know. Like, to go back to the events, yeah, it would be great to have 10,000 people at the event, but you know what I really need? I need people to come there willing to spend money so my vendors do well. And to put it
Uh-huh.
very simply, vendors, that's their survival. And as
Yeah.
much as it's a fun event and a ton of work and effort goes into putting it on, they're all working. I think people
Yeah.
forget that. Like, when you're coming to this event, all those happy
Hmm.
people in those cute little 10 by 10 booths, they're working. And yes, they're eating
Yeah.
the food and they're joking with you and they're having a good time, but that stuff's for sale, or they're looking for donations, or they're looking to educate you and get donations
Yeah.
somehow, some way, because they paid to be there. And my job is to bring people in that will buy or donate to them. And that makes a successful event. So if I have a
Yeah.
thousand people and 900 of them spend money, that's a better event than a 10,000 person event where the energy in those lines are like ridiculous, because the food always does well. But
Yeah.
only like 2,000 of them spend money. My vendors are going to be upset
Yeah.
because they'll
Well, I think the
notice.
reality is like in the social media world, whether it's veg fests or comment sections on YouTube, or there's like real people behind all that stuff, right? With
Yep.
real people with real lives and passions and responsibilities and partners and families and whoever, whatever else that like they're real people there,
Yep.
and I think we just, in the social media world, it's very easy to just, oh, click this picture, hate this picture, tell this person to go screw themselves. They're awful. I wish they were dead. Why don't you give me this stuff for free? And it's like, yeah, these are like, it's more than just ones and zeros and pixels on a screen. Like there's human beings behind all of this, or most of it, um,
Yeah.
that I think we lose sight of. And that's, again, that's why I like building those communities, I think are so important to making social change. Like we have to remember that we are people. And that's one of the things, people are always like, does social media make this easier? And in certain regards, yes, but also in certain regards, no. Like you need to have face-to-face interactions, whether that's going to protest with one another, whether that's going to each other's veg fests, whether that's going out for a meal, whether that's like going to the movies or something, or whatever it is. Like you need to know each other face to face and realize that we are people with emotions and feelings and thoughts, and not just autonomous corporations or people on a screen. Yeah, I think we really need to break out of that. And I think that affects positively everything from veg fests to protest campaigns and everything in between.
Yeah, the keyboard warriors are, I have no good words to say
Yeah.
about keyboard warriors. They
It was
just,
interesting. This woman, when I lived in the Bay Area, there was this woman that she just hated me, and that's fine. I don't really care if people hate me or not; it doesn't bother me. But she, like, anytime I would write anything, she just write like the nastiest stuff in comments over and over and over and over again. And I knew she lived in the Bay Area too, and I was like, "Why don't we go out to lunch, you and I, like, and just talk?" And she was like, "Okay." And she was a completely different person. She was like not combative. She wasn't talking shit. She wasn't calling me names. She wasn't calling me an idiot. And we had a meal for an hour and we talked and we explained each other's positions. And we went away like having a better understanding of each other. We didn't agree, but we had a better understanding. And she never commented on my posts ever again. And I never, we never had a fight ever again. It was like, fuck, like, why can't we just do this all the time? Just talk to each other like human beings. You try to talk to people and they're just like, no, you're not saying what I want to hear. You're blocked. You're saying what I want. You're making me look bad. Blocked, blocked, blocked. It's like, how are we supposed to build up anything or become better if we don't encourage disagreement?
I agree. The hardest part about the past year, I say up until the past year, that's what like my social media was like. Differing views. Some people I know that definitely hate me or don't like me, but we're still
Mm-hmm.
there. Republicans, Trumpists, they're just all gone now because the past year just made it so no. It's been such a stressful year with everything that's gone on around us that I
Yeah.
just didn't want it. I didn't want it in that world as well. So, and they're like out of their minds. So it's like anti-vax, like, no masks, Trump is like,
Hmm.
still president, whatever it is. I was like, yo, and I would go back at them with science and facts and like things like that. They're those things that actually
Yeah.
do matter, and they wouldn't like that,
Yeah.
and I would be
I spent,
blocked.
yeah, I spent the last year or portion of last year just unfriending and unfollowing as many people as possible on social media. Not because I dislike them or it's like I don't know you very well and we don't speak regularly and we don't call each other or text each other. It's just like, we don't ever really interact on social media. So why are we following each other? Like you're a great person, but I need quality like communication and relationships in my life at this point. So I unfollowed like thousands of people. And now it's just like on Instagram, I follow 200 people as opposed to like the 4,000 people I was following. And it's like sanctuaries, food, and like people that lead interesting lives that I try to keep in touch with on a regular basis. And then I go on Instagram, and when you follow 200 people, you like finish Instagram in like 5 minutes. You're like, oh, there's nothing else to look at. I guess I won Instagram for the day. And I spend less time on social media. My interactions on social media, at least what I see, is so much more pleasant. And if I want to be challenged, then I have my YouTube channel and things like that to have conversations with people in the comments until I stop.
Right, and
Yeah.
you know what?
So,
I'm gonna say something I really appreciate that you do. Your Patreon. I
oh yeah.
love what you're doing, because I
Oh,
started
thanks.
something as well. I did like this pass the buck thing where you can donate $1 and I'll donate to typically a nonprofit, typically sanctuaries, over the course of like 2020. It didn't really
Yeah,
catch on, so I was like, just donate $1. But what you're doing is catching on. Your audience is bigger than my audience was, but I absolutely, I'm all about giving back. Like, I do the events so
yeah,
I can donate to all these people in these cities that we're in, helping pigs,
totally.
helping people. I mean, there's always somebody who needs money,
Yeah.
always. So,
Yeah. I mean, we need to reinvest back into our communities for sure and support the people we want to support. For people that don't know, I do a Patreon. It actually was in response to, these mega influencers or big influencers that had these like giant Patreons and then they don't really ever do anything in terms of activism. They just like fly around and hang out on the beach and say that's vegan activism. I don't really understand it, but whatever. We all have different theories of change, but whatever. Um, and I'm just like, where does this money go? Like, what a colossal waste of resources to pay for people to just like sit on the beach and take selfies and whatever. So I thought like let's just do like a real Patreon. I called it the anti-Patreon Patreon Club, where 100% of all the money every month gets donated. I didn't want to be the one in charge of it. I was just facilitating it, which is still how it's run. So anyone that's in the Patreon for as little as $2 a month, you can nominate, for lack of a better word, like a sanctuary or a grassroots animal rights project. And so I keep a spreadsheet, and I got dozens and dozens and dozens of places, and every month I pick three based on like their needs and their budgets, and if they have immediate needs, like people are like, the barn was a tree fell on the barn and we need $3,000 to fix the barn. And I'm like, cool, let's give them all of our money. And then every month, everyone gets to vote. So I put up three places, everyone votes. Whoever gets the most votes gets all the money. And so I think I've been doing it for about 6 months. And I think we've given away over $10,000 in 6 months, which is amazing. And it's not like loads of people giving boatloads of money. It's like 300 people giving $2, $4, $10 every month. And it's been great. The last few months we've had a matching donor who, so I think last month we our Patreon was like 1,600 and something dollars, and with the match we gave away like $3,300, which is amazing.
yeah, I saw it. I think it was 35.88 because you kind of flashed it on the
Yeah,
screen. That
yeah,
is absolutely, it warms my heart. It's like, even if I don't know who you're giving the money to, the fact that they're a nonprofit and or sanctuary or whatever they're doing in this movement, that $100. I gave, to give you, at Asheville Vegan Fest, one of the vendors was collected for every sale they did. They were giving a percentage back to me, the nonprofit. And I walked over and
hmm
he handed me, I think, $50. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, because he sold out. He was like, here you go. And I was like, I didn't know. So I was like, oh, thank you so much. So as I'm walking around, I talked to all the vendors, and I went over to Randy at the Cows Come Home. They're a sanctuary for cows in Tennessee outside of Knoxville. And I walked over and I thought to myself, oh, I should just give this to her. So I took out the $50 and I was like, here, I was not going to keep the money. I was like, here, you should have
Yeah.
this. And she cried. You
Yeah.
could have thought I gave her $1 million. It didn't
Yeah.
matter. Just, I was like, I, no, it's not going to stick. And yeah, I'm a nonprofit, but it made more sense to me to go, no, you should have this.
Yeah.
Take care of the
There are times
cows.
when I feel bad. I'm like, I wish it could be so much more. But like last month, for instance, we actually split it and gave it up to two people. One of them was a woman that rescues cats, Sassy Badass TNR or Sassy Badass TNR in Brooklyn, New York. It's like a one woman show. She does it all herself. And we gave her $1,600, and she wrote me, it was like, that's the biggest donation I've ever gotten. And like, I can't tell you how much that means to me and how much I can achieve with $1,600. And I'm thinking like, God, I just wish we could give her more. Like, this just doesn't seem like a lot. Like, you just never know, you know? And like, she's like, $1,600 essentially changed, like, how we're going to be, like, how she's going to be able to do what she does, and to be able to like help each other out and support one another is so amazing.
That's
Yeah, it's like
it.
you have two
That's it.
bucks and like it turns into $1,600. Like, well, that's amazing.
I yeah, because I mean, I would cry. Like I would just,
Yeah.
if I those emails, the the fact that people, the fact that you're doing that, you call yourself a cranky vegan, you can say you call yourself an asshole. However,
It's just a
you,
shtick.
it's just a stick. Exactly. You are
Yeah.
generous, you are compassionate, and you show that because just to think of, to donate, to give out, to give back says
Yeah.
the character of who you are.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm really, like I said, I love to see that, and it's along the lines of what we do. I raised money from that Asheville Vegan Fest. I raised $1,000 and in 2019, and it was supposed to go towards certain animals, and
Yeah.
it didn't work out. And it happened to work out about a month ago that Owen's a really big farm pig, needed a place to go, and they found a place for Owen to go, but they needed to
Hmm.
build the area for Owen to live.
Yeah.
So that $1,000 went towards helping Owen.
Nice.
And that's what, just, I don't forget it. It's just a matter of like, and it's in the area where the money was raised. It was in Western North Carolina, the Asheville area. And
Hmm.
Owen's really cute. He's brown. He's like really cute. So Owen has a home now. And did it pay for all of the fencing? No, but did it pay for a big chunk of it? Yes. I'm pretty sure it's called Over the Moon Sanctuary in Western North
Nice.
Carolina. So that's along the same premise. Like when we raise money, when the events are going, we have 7 of these festivals in a year. There's so much we can give back, so
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
that, and then yeah, you pay $5-10 to come to the event, or maybe a little more if you're a VIP. But just know that's what you're contributing towards, not towards like us like living this lavish lifestyle on a beach
Totally.
in
Yeah.
like in the Pacific eating pineapple. No, it's because I know exactly what you're talking about, which is not the first time someone has cryptically spoken about the same exact person in the same exact way.
Yeah.
If you don't know, just go watch his YouTube. So there's a few of them. But just but yeah, that's why we do. It's why I do what I do. So I'm able to give back. So thank you also for doing what you do and turning it into something that you can give back.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. So, Jake, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, I did Facebook. So if
Yeah.
someone wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do it?
Message me and then wait 2 or 3 months and then pester me over and over and over again until I write you back. It's probably the best. I'm
I didn't
always
do
like,
that part.
no, everyone is like, can I ask something of it? Can I ask you to read this or can I ask you to give me input? I'm like, yes, I'm terrible at writing back to people. If you really like, I don't care if you pester me, write me every single day. I don't care. But eventually I get to it. But anyways, yeah, I'm online as the Cranky Vegan pretty much everywhere on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter is _ Jake Conroy. I don't really use it that much. Anti Patreon Club, which is patreon.com Cranky Vegan. And then you can email me at jake@jakeconroy.com.
There it is. Ah,
Yeah,
let me get your name right. That would help. Okay, all be part of this. Yeah, the
perfect.
Patreon thing. That's like it's like makes me want to do the same thing. It's like probably would have been easier just to do a Patreon thing because then people really feel like the money's going somewhere as opposed to like the
Yeah,
pass the buck. It actually went through our nonprofit and then that money and of course like with the money that was donated, if it wasn't a lot, I added to it. I paid the
yeah,
fees. Like I was
yeah,
like, because I even with COVID and not having the events, didn't stop donating to the people we actually donate to monthly, even though we
yeah.
weren't taking in any of the funds that we really needed to. I couldn't hit stop on those donations, and I mean, because it really helps them. There's
Yeah.
a couple of people. There's like three people we donate to monthly. Piedmont Environmental Refuge, Cotton Branch, and to
Hmm.
Roxanne over in Eastern North Carolina Farm Animal Save. It just
Nice.
how do you choose which to stop donating
Um,
to?
yeah, that's the tough part, isn't it? That's why I put it on everyone else. That's really the like you can vote. It's not my responsibility at this point. I'm a Patreon, yeah. Then I don't have to make the hard decision about who gets the money and who doesn't. That's all your responsibility.
Right.
It's pass the buck.
I guess that does something. And one of the ones that you donated to the person in New York City, but you also donated to someone in Ireland, which I thought was really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. We've been giving money. We've given money to people in Europe, Lebanon, throughout the United States, a bunch of places. But it's cool, and it's like transparency is super important to me too. Like that's the other thing with these Patreons and these influencers. You don't know where this money goes. Like this person gets $5,000 a month on Patreon. Like what's it being used for? Like I'm all for people getting paid, but like if you're gonna get that much money, like run it like a nonprofit. So you get an annual report at the end of the year. I spent this much money on this and this and this, and then you feel like your investment is actually going somewhere. And so that's
Right.
what it is on Patreon. It's like every month I send a screenshot. This is how much money was put in my bank account. This is a screenshot of me sending that exact amount to the place that we voted on. And here are the pictures of the animals that we're helping. So people can see this is exactly where the money goes to, no questions asked.
That's awesome, and not like first class
Yeah.
plane tickets. I mean, flying that far, first class like totally makes sense. But the way we'll get to first class is like with the points that we've accumulated because we spent a
Yeah,
lot of money to put on events, not actually
totally.
buying the first class ticket
Agreed.
because that's expensive.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So that's a whole show in itself, and I haven't
Yeah,
touched
it
that,
really
but
is.
we're heading. I'm heading in a direction. We're actually creating a new show, and we will talk about that on our new show. So, but
Nice.
that's still hush hush, but it's coming, and we're gonna be hated sometimes because you know there's
That's
some
all right.
topics that people get really heated about.
Yeah, that's okay. I think it's fine if people disagree and don't like you for your opinions, whatever. I don't know.
Agreed.
I don't have a problem with it.
I
People are always like, "You're an asshole," and I hate you. I'm like, okay, but what do you want from me? Like, I don't care if you hate me or don't like me. You have no bearing on me as an individual. Like,
Right.
I don't care.
I'm gonna still. You know what I can do? I can lay my head down at night and go to sleep, and
Yeah.
and be thankful for everything that I did during the day.
I mean, it's so interesting. Like, I mean, I can't go. People are always like, you don't respond to the comment. Like, I try to respond as many comments as I possibly can, particularly on YouTube, but I just can't do them all. But like, yeah, I'll get like comments on videos that are like 2 years old that are like, "You're an asshole." I'm like, okay, like, what? Why? You're going back on a video from 2 years ago to like try to insult me? I don't understand. Like, who has that much time on their hands? It's so weird. I don't know.
It's the only one they watched.
Yeah, if that, they probably didn't even watch it. They just didn't like the title.
That's a good point too. Like at least
Yeah,
take the time.
yeah,
Take the 10 minutes.
yeah. It
And
won't
or
hurt.
even skim it.
Yeah, fast forward through it.
Right, exactly. You'll see a lot of facial expressions. It'll be great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I know, like, you're West Coast, so you've got an extra 3 hours, and for me, I'm not hungry because I ate a parfait of like vegan gluten-free cookies and whipped cream and some brownies, and
Sounds good.
it was, yeah, it was so good. And Steven is downstairs making sauce and fresh bread. So I mean, as soon as I walk down my stairs, it smells amazing in my house.
I'm
So
jealous.
yeah, I would say yes. It definitely should be. He makes the best sauce like ever.
Nice.
So all homemade. Yeah, it's like I'm very fortunate. So, but thank you so much, and you, you enjoy your food because I'm kind of
Thank you
envious.
very much.
And I'm not gonna tell anyone what we're talking about, but he's in a place where there's tons of delicious food at his
I
fingertips, and that's
know.
a fantastic.
It is. I'm very grateful.
All right, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I'd love to talk more about things we can do. I think you'd be great, or I feel like it'd be great if you came out here because you know we're the second largest producer of pigs in eastern
Yep.
North Carolina. And Roxanne, who I mentioned, could really use help in motivating and getting people to do. And maybe you're
Totally.
that piece that can help get people to do more because we do have a problem here in North Carolina that uh,
Yeah.
not just the pigs, not just the factory farms, but the people who live around those factory farms, you
Hmm.
know, are people of color or less fortunate, and they're dying from diseases because they live by factory farms, and
Totally.
there's a whole big thing, and that's part of our activism in this state. People know about North Carolina in the vegan activism world because we're the second largest producer of pigs, and that's about 2 hours from my house. So I think you
Mm.
would be fantastic to maybe you can be that piece that can really jumpstart the people here to do more.
Maybe pester away.
I I will because we can all start, you know, jump on the like really cheap airfare
Yeah.
before it goes away, and
Yeah.
soon in about what is it? It's a 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. You can jump on a plane.
That's right.
Yep, I know.
I'm ready.
Me too. All right. Well, thank you, Jake. I really appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Have a great day.
You too. Bye
All
bye.
right. Bye. Well, everyone, thank you once again for being part of Virtual Vegfest Live. And here's my problem. I have no idea who's coming on next week because I didn't look. And I have to look at my calendar so I can know. Next Thursday. Oh, you know what? I don't have talks next week. I am hosting the Shape Up Summit. And I will be live next week, or I'll be part of the Shape Up Summit. But I will not have a virtual VegFest live any days next week. So, oops, that's not going to happen. But if you go to shapeupsummit.com and you can register, there's going to be talks. Like I'm going to do a live talk with Corinne Sutton next Thursday. And then I think on Thursday night as well, Josie Sinez, who's from our community, will also be with me for a live Q&A. And on Saturday, the 22nd, Marisa from Vegucated and the UK Vegan Family, Daniela and Adam, will be part of the Shape Up Summit, and those are the talks that I will be doing the live Q&A. And join us for the Shape Up Summit. Shape Up Summit, shapeupus.org. Check it out. Amazing, amazing nonprofit. I just did a talk with Jill yesterday, which you can find on our Virtual VegFest YouTube to learn all about the summit. It is on our social media. You can watch it here on Facebook. You can go watch that and learn about the event and register. Raising healthy children and having healthy families and healthy humans and healthy adults. That's important, right? So join us for the Shape Up Summit. So if that's not the case, the following week, what do I do the following? Oh, the Duo Gooders. We're going back to Knoxville. So on the 27th at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, we have Allison and Shayla are going to come on. And then I think it's like we're doing a Sunday. No, I don't have a talk on the 20th. Oh, I don't have a talk that weekend because it's Memorial Day. And everyone gets to enjoy their weekend. So that's me. Remember to wear your mask. Well, okay, so the world's changed a little bit since the last time I was live, which was yesterday. Unbelievably, they say don't wear a mask. Well, they say you don't have to wear a mask. I say these are really awesome for not getting sick. I don't want to get the flu. I don't want to get viruses. I don't want to catch your germs and your colds. So I say let's just keep these around. How much money did you spend on like a cool mask like this one that says go vegan with a little piggy on it? A lot of people spend a lot of money on masks in the past year. I say keep using them. You know, wear it correctly when you're around people, when you're in public. A lot of germs out there. Keeps you from touching your face, dirty fingers, touching doorknobs and tabletops and all those things. Hand sanitizer in your car. Clean your hands if you're not near water. These are great habits that we've gotten into over the past year. But let's keep doing them. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And you know what? Get vaccinated. It's a really good idea. And I saw that Tess was watching. Tess is a nurse. She's watched COVID front lines. Let's get vaccinated so that we can come back to like somewhat of a normal, even though we're kind of like in a normal, but people there's a whole topic there about that. But getting vaccinated is true science, and you know what? I'm happy that I won't die from COVID now because I'm vaccinated. And that's what I kind of want for all of you, for all of us to be able to get back together and maybe mask, maybe not mask, but at least I'll invite you to my house to like share in that sauce and the bread and maybe pizza, whatever we're going to make. I feel comfortable having you here to share and break bread and have a meal with me because you're vaccinated. So, have a great week. Join me for Shape Up Summit next week. Subscribe to Virtual Vegfest on YouTube. Loved my talk with the Cranky Vegan. And in July, we're going to go to once a week. So it'll be Thursdays only. Because guess what I want to do? I want to travel. And we're having events. So we're going to talk about that. Have a great rest of your weekend. It's beautiful weather here in North Carolina. Enjoy it. And we'll see you soon. Bye.